everyone, so this video is going to be a book review on Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare, the latest book in her writing. It's still really hot and I'm inside of my room, so it's kind of baking in here. And yes, I will still complain about it being hot. I don't know if that annoyed a couple people because I don't know why when somebody says it's hot, somebody else has to mention, yeah, it's hotter where I am and it's climate change. It's hot everywhere. But anyways, I have my fan on, so if you can hear that, I'm sorry. And this keeps doing that, so I might just. But yeah, anyways, like I mentioned, this is going to be a book review, but it is not going to be the complete book review. I discussed this in a couple videos previously, but this book is ginormous, and I am a relatively slow reader, which is annoying to me. But I am going to do a three-part book review of this book. So this video is going to be part 1. I read the first 250 to the first 12 chapters of the book, so that is what I'm going to be discussing today. I have all my tabs, all the notes that I've been doing since I started the book, and there's just within the first 100 pages, within the first 250 pages, so much happens. So I felt like even if I did do one all-encompassing book review of the book, it would have been 45 minutes long, and this video is probably going to be 20 minutes long. But we're just gonna get through it. So this is the second book in the Dark Artifices trilogy. I have Lady Midnight's right here. I have a review for Lady Midnight on my channel. I'll put a link to it. But I did a review of this entire book. I even did this one in 2 parts because look at that. But yeah, I'll link both of those videos down below if you're curious to see my thoughts about this book, and I'll be happy to talk about this book also if you want to discuss it. But yeah. Also, did this happen to anybody else? There was several pages in this book that were not completely attached to the actual book itself, and it was really annoying because I didn't want him to fall out, so I had to stick him back in. And yeah, this one's on the verge of coming off. Did that happen to anybody else? Because I feel since this book has so many pages, it wasn't binded properly or something. But yeah. Anyway, so the book starts off pretty much where the other one finishes. Oh, and also, if this is the first book review of mine that you are watching, I make a whole bunch of tabs, and I kind of just go through the tabs and just discuss whatever it was that I mentioned on the things on the post-it. So my reviews are kind of all over the place. They're not extremely unorganized, but they're kind of just rambling fangirly, so that's how I kind of just do it. So the first sticky note that I have is on page 6, and it's when Jace and Kit have this first conversation. It's the first conversation of the book. It's the first conversation between Jace and Kit, a real conversation. And I wrote that I knew it was Jace immediately. It says, oh, but it wasn't Julian. It was the young man Kit hadn't ever seen before, though something about him was familiar. He was tall, with tousled blonde hair and a shadow hunter's build, broad shoulders, muscular arms with the black lines of the runic marks. They protected themselves with peeking out from the collar and cuffs of his shirt. And I was tousled blonde hair and shadow hunter's build. That has to be Jace. And then, on the next page, it was Jace. So he introduced himself as Jace Herondale. Kit is a Herondale. He is the lost Herondale. He is the one that Tessa and Jem have been looking for some reason. We don't know why yet, or I don't know why yet, if they discussed it. Like I said, I don't know anything past page 252 of this book. So that was kind of another reason why I wanted to do it in 3 parts, because of the fact that there's so much. I thought it would be cool to talk about the beginning and maybe theorize later pieces, but then figure out what happens and then talk about it again. Just, yeah. And then this next part that I just thought was funny, it's on page 14, and it's when all the Shadowhunters are on Santa Monica Pier, and they're looking, see, these pages are already coming off again. How annoying. But they're all on Santa Monica Pier, and Mark is trying to get a fish or something, and he gets one, and then he just and then he makes a comment about, it's too bad, I was going to name it Magnus because it has sparkly scales. And I just thought that was funny. Any mention of Magnus, I am here for, and so that was just funny. The next post-it note I have is on page 43, and I wrote the Herondale sass is strong with this one and with Kit, because he's talking to Julian. He's like, let me go alone. They know me. They trust me. Talking about when Kit and Julian went to the shadow market, and Kit was talking to Julian about how you should let me go, they know me, whatever. And he's like, they'll answer my questions, tell me whatever I want. He held at a hound. he held out a hand. Can't speak. I'll need some money, of course. And I just thought that was funny. That was very sassy and very Herondale-y, and yes. And then later on in this scene, when Kit actually goes into the shadow market, Julian is tailing him, and Julian just very much stands out like a shadow hunter. He talks to this one woman that he knows, and then basically the whole scene happens, and they're telling Kit, like, you're basically not welcome here. And so I just wrote that it was sad that, like, his whole world was turned upside down. He lost his father, found out he was a shadow hunter, found out he was a Herondale, and now he's not even welcome around these people that he's always known. And so it was just kind of sad. All right, and then a little bit further forward on page 57, I have a thing here, and Clary is there. She's talking to Emma because Emma and Clary are pretty close. And so Clary was talking to Emma. She's talking about how Tessa was Will, there's so many characters, Will's wife, and how Tessa is a warlock herself and how she alone is powerful. And I wrote that I know this book isn't about the OG characters, so like Clary and Jace and Magnus and Alec, but I still really appreciate the fact that they're in this book. And honestly, I don't have a lot of expectations with anything. I realize that expectation leads to disappointment, so I go into fictional world without really expecting too much, because I just like taking not like blindly taking, but like whatever the author like gives me in regards to, in this case of like giving us characters from past books that we love. I appreciate that, and I know they're not in this because 250 pages in, like, they weren't in it so much. They were in it a decent amount, I thought, but yeah, I just appreciated that. Anyways, moving on. So the next thing I have here is on the very next page, and I have a lot of notes here, and it's when Clary is talking about Sebastian. So she's like, look, if anyone's going to understand about this, I will. I killed Sebastian, my brother. I put a knife in him, and she's talking about that, and flashbacks to the demon realm in City of Heavenly Fire when like everything went down, and her own flashbacks, and and just no need. It was such, yeah. And so the next page, we get to a scene that I was not happy with, and that I was quite shocked reading, and I don't know why this is happening, and this better not be foreshadowing for anything in the future. But Clary is talking to Emma. They're talking about why Clary wouldn't say yes to marrying Jace. And so Clary decides, or tells her, she's like, yeah, I have this feeling that I'm going to die. Clary, our main character from the beginning of these books, is telling Emma that she is going to die, and soon, which is why she wouldn't marry Jace, because she didn't want him to like be married to somebody who was going to die. And so Clary basically has like a knowledge or a feeling that she's going to die, and they don't really address that again, well, within the first 250 pages. So I was slightly stunned. I was very shocked when I read this. I don't know what that means. I hope that does not happen. I don't even know what to make of that. And so apparently Emma is the only person that she has told this to. At this point, Clary and Simon are parabatai. Then she says, she's telling Emma, not only is she the only person that she's telling this information to, but she's like, if I do die, I want you to tell them, Jace and the others, that I knew I was going to die, and I wasn't scared, and tell Jace this is why I said no. And I don't even know. So that happened, hasn't been addressed again within the first 200 pages, and I just don't even know, and I don't even want to think about it. But anyway, so the next page, there was a little bit of representation, which I liked, and it was about Ty, and so Ty and Kit are like becoming very close, and I'm sensing a little bit of like a love triangle between Ty, Kit, and Tavi. They're like, yeah, I don't know. So, Kit and Julian are having a conversation when they're driving back from the shadow market, and Kit says something about, oh, with your weird brother, and so Julian's like, Ty isn't weird, and Kit's like, I meant Mark, Ty isn't weird, he's just autistic. And so I thought that was, really nice to include. It for, autistic people that care for autistic people, they're not weird, they just need special attention and more love and more support and I thought that was nice. Also, more about representation on page 67, the beginning of chapter 4. I have another note here that I'm really happy. I mentioned this when I was talking about Lady Midnight, but I'm really happy with the Mexican representation in this book because of Christina, who is my favorite character in this trilogy. I love her. She is just, I feel like she's me. And Diego, we're having a bit of a rough patch with him at the moment by the end of the, like, chapter 12. But I'm just really happy with the Mexican heritage and people being represented as main characters, and the fact that they speak a little bit of Spanish every now and then, especially when they're talking to each other. Christina even speaks a little bit of Spanish to, what's her name? Emma sometimes, and although she doesn't really speak it, she understands. Like, she even mentions that at one point. She's like, oh, I didn't need to know exactly what she just said to know what she was asking me, and so I really appreciate that. Also, on page 78, I have another note here about Ty healed Kit, their first real so it was their first real, like, conversation with each other. It was when Ty put an Iratzi on Kit. It was like his first rune, and they just had a nice little conversation and got to know each other a little bit better, and they do so further on in the book, and I really like Kit. I love all the Herondales, and so Kit is no exception. Also, I'm sorry that my hair keeps, like, getting everywhere. I know that's annoying when you're watching a video and, like, the person's hair is, like, not working. Again, with the Mexican representation, this boy Manuel, he is not Mexican, but he is Spanish. That's not really, like, Mexican or Latin American representation, but it's still Spanish representation, which I thought was cool. Also, okay, I really liked this paragraph right here. It says, he did have what Christina thought of as a Spanish accent, the softening of the C sound, the way that gracias sounds like gracias. And he thanked her. It was charming. And I think that's so funny because one of my favorite movies is this Spanish film called The Orphanage, or El Orfanato in Spanish. And it's Spanish, so everybody in that film is Spanish. The main character, Laura, she's like a mother and a wife, and it's a scary movie. I love that movie so much, but they have a Spanish accent, and so whenever they speak, I hear a lot of the sound, and I just love it. I love the accent. It's so nice to hear. Okay, and then we get to page 82. Hit myself. And the rest of the Centurions come, and we meet Zara, and apparently she's Diego's betrothed, and that was definitely surprising for me, for Christina. And this is another thing that I really love about Cassandra Clare's writing style, is how she always ends a chapter with, like, some kind of cliffhanger. Like, she ends up with, like, oh, I'm Diego's fiance, and then that's the end of the chapter, and so it's like, well, what's gonna happen next? And then it makes you want to keep reading. I love it when writers do that. Oh, then another note I have here is on page 88, and it's just a random little thing. One of my favorite film movie franchises ever is the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I've been watching those since they came out. I realized that was in 2003, so over 10 years ago I've been involved with this. I remember watching At World's End in theaters and not realizing that movie came out 10 years ago. So yeah. But anyways, Emma and Christina are talking about, and they talk about how Jules and I used to come up here together at sunset practically every night and wait for the green flash. And it's like when the sun goes down and you see like a little flash of green or something. I've never seen that in real life, but apparently it's a real thing. But it just reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean, because in the third one, At World's End, they do that. They have to, like, flip the ship over, and it's just funny. And then I have another note here on page 101, that the Centurions are very arrogant. I don't really like that. I don't like it. That's a quality in people that is not cute. I don't like it when people are arrogant. Like, arrogance and confidence are two different things. You can be confident without being arrogant, and I just don't like that. Like, people need to be humble. Diego he's not really like the rest of the Centurions, and I don't speak for all of them, because I think a couple of them were like, okay, but yeah, like, as a whole, they're like the elite shadow hunters or whatever. They have certain knowledge, but I just didn't appreciate the arrogance. And also a little bit later, the discrimination and the fact that they were a little bit, like, downworldy racist. So that was not okay. Well, Zara, at least. The next note I have is a conversation between Ty and Kit, and it's when he's asking him to basically be like his John Watson to his Sherlock. He's asking him to stay and help him solve mysteries and crimes and stuff, and I thought that was cute. Ty is so smart, and he realized that Kit was somebody that he could use, and so he's asking him to say, I think he likes him as a person, but he realized that Kit had certain things about him that he could use. Next note that I have here, I just thought that was funny, and it's when Emma finally confronts Diego about the fact that he got with Christina despite being engaged, and so Christina made Emma promise her that she wouldn't do anything to Diego and hurt him, but Emma decided that she would take what she said and just lead him to an anthill and let him get bit by a bunch of red ants. I thought that was funny. Very cunning of her. Page 117 is something that Arthur said, and it's just a quote that I liked. So this quote is, there's a lot of really quote-worthy lines throughout these books, and this is one of them that I liked in this book in particular. It says, "Fiction is truth even if it is not fact. If you believe only in facts and forget stories, your brain will live, but your heart will die." And I just like that because I really like balance of things, and so you need to have a good dose of reality and a little bit of whatever you enjoy, and so I like that. And this next note that I have here is just kind of random, but it's when Kit and Ty are talking again, and Kit's like, "I can't tell any of them apart. It's the uniforms. It makes them all look the same to me, like ants." About the Centurions, and Ty is like, "Ants don't all look the same." And so I was just honestly curious, like, what does he see when he looks at ants, though? Like, does he see like individual characteristics of these little critters? Like, I was just curious, and they didn't elaborate on that, but I just thought it was funny. On page 132 is just another quote, and it's something that Emma says, and she's like, "She lies, she just sits there and lies like her opinions are facts." And I was like, sounds like our administration, unfortunately. Okay, and then on page 140, this is when Mark kind of leaves, and so Julie and Christina and Emma have to follow him into the fairyland. I have to walk across that path that's like in the ocean, and so that what they were describing and talking about, it kind of reminded me of the Rainbow Bridge in Thor. And so finally, everybody is in the land of the fairy, and they're talking about a blood river, and I just like imagined that in my head, and it was kind of creepy. So yeah. Alright, so at this point we're kind of more into a plot line of a story of this book in particular, and so Zara is talking about how she wants every downworlder to wear a sign to basically have some kind of thing to show what they are. And I wrote here, I'm like, okay, Hitler, because that was very reminiscent of I think I mentioned this at one point. I might have gone past it, but Kit is telling them, he's like, yeah, you should read like a mundane history book every now and then, because World War II, Holocaust, like that's exactly how it started. So that was just insane to me, that like, because the Shadowhunters, they don't really know that much about mundane history. The Shadowhunters are an arrogant people for like a lot, for the most part, especially like the Clave and the upper people in the upper Shadowhunters. So obviously, like, no, that's not the way to go with things. That's just even further discrimination. It's like the Clave is always picking on the downworld, and they already go through enough, but then they want to do this to basically like have eventually, like, if this goes like it has in history, like downworld or genocide basically. So this needs to get put a stop to this, like, immediately. Alright, so the next one I have here is back in Fairy, and it's when Christina is alone with Mark, and she spills the beans about the fact that Julian and Emma are in love with each other, and so nobody but her knew this, and so they were trying to keep this from Mark. Alright, so moving on page 206, I have another note here about the Fairy King, and he comes out, and the way that they describe them, I immediately thought of Voldemort. And I have another note on page 222, and it's when all those demons start attacking the Institute, and so Diana and the Centurions and everybody go out there, and they're prepared to fight these things, and all of a sudden, Zara decides to snap at Diana. And Diana decides to put her in her place, rightfully so. I love Diana. She's like 20-something in this book, which is really, and she's like a little bit older than like Jason, Clary and stuff. But Zara's like, oh, we're Centurions. We don't take orders from you. And Diana's like, shut up, you stupid child. As if the Dearborns didn't cower and surge during the Dark War. You've never been in a real battle. I have. Don't speak another word. Now, And that just made me very happy because she put her in her place where she belongs. And also before that, Diego was the only one who was like really paying any mind to Diana and her orders. And I know that like people don't really like him at the moment, but I feel like he has a reason, and I don't know what it is yet. But he's not. He's acting very like he knows he's in the wrong, and he's not acting like arrogant or anything. You're like, oh yeah, well I played you. So I feel like he has reasons for his actions. I wish he would have told Christina before like she arrived, because he didn't think she was gonna arrive and blah blah blah. But I want to know what his reasons are. So the next page, and guess who's back? Malcolm Fade. You know, the guy that Emma killed in the last book at the end and kind of started something. Yeah, apparently he's not dead, and he's back, and he's gonna probably come back with an even bigger vengeance, and it's just not gonna go great. All right, and the next note that I have here, I guess I missed a note previously or something. I don't know, but when Emma is fighting that fairy that they had her fight with, she took off his helmet, and then she saw her dad. And that was something that the guy at the ferry at the front, or whatever it was, at the beginning of at the gate was like, you're gonna see somebody that you love that is dead. And so she kind of took that with a grain of salt. And I was very surprised, but they show later on that it was like it wasn't her father. It was just it was magic. And so Emma realizes that this fairy that she killed, or is about to kill, is not her dad. So she just went through so many emotions. My dad's back. What is he doing here? Like, all these things are going through her head, and then she realizes that it's all fake. It's not real. And she just goes ham on this fairy and like stabs and slices. And it was just a very nasty scene. Almost done here. The second to last note that I have here is when they finally free Kieran, because that was the reason why they went into Fairy, and it was to free Kieran because they were going to kill him, and Mark felt the need to go and save him. And so he's talking to him, and apparently Kieran doesn't remember anything that happened, so including the whippings, like him kind of betraying Mark. He doesn't remember anything, so Mark is just like very confused. Kieran is confused and in pain, and so it was just a whole to do. Alright, and then the very last thing I have here, so they get Kieran, they get out of there. Julian has one of the king's sons, his favorite son in fact. He's holding him hostage. He holds him hostage until like a little bit later, that he frees him so that they can run. They start running. They're trying to get away from the king and his people. They're trying to get out of Fairy. They're trying to escape, and they come across this very large hill that they don't think that they can overcome, with like Kieran basically being passed out and everybody's kind of hurt and all that, because the runes don't work, so they're not able to like apply runes and be able to go faster quietly or anything like that. So they're kind of stuck, and then all of a sudden there's like a parting in this hill or something, and this woman comes out, and she's like, I'm Mean. I think that's how you want to. I think that's how. I mean, that's how I'm pronouncing her name. And she's like, I will aid you and not harm you, but now come quickly. And so I'm like, I haven't read on from this point, but I'm like, who is this woman? Who is she? But yeah, that is as far as I have gotten. I'm about 45 minutes into a video here. I got to edit this and upload it. But that was the first third of the book. So the next review that I have is going to be the next 250 pages, and then the last 200, because there's always like a lot of stuff that happens in the last like 100 or 200 pages of these books especially. Yeah, I'm excited to read the rest of the book and figure out everything. I have a stack of books here. I have books everywhere that I want to read after this. I need to get to reading more because I just have so many, and I love reading, but like I said, I'm a slow reader, and yeah, I know that like when I start reading, I won't stop for hours if I really let myself. So that's why I sometimes don't even start, which is annoying. I think that is it for this video. Please leave any comments down below. Please don't spoil me on anything. Like I said, I'm only 252 pages in. I read the first 12 chapters, so I haven't started chapter 13 yet. But yeah, go ahead and leave any comments down below about this or even Lady Midnight. I will have part 2 of this discussion up in the coming weeks. I do not know when it will be up. But yeah, like I said, really enjoying it so far. Excited to finish it. Please do not spoil me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.